Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope you're doing well. So, another Western value that is often overlooked is the worshipping of the number 18. Now, what do we mean when we say this? Well, I would be very surprised for any, at least 90s, 80s generation youth to have never heard, when you're 18, you can do what you want, but until then, you'll follow the rules under this house, or some variation of that. We're often told, when you turn 18, you can do what you want, but when you're in this house, it's my rules. So the beating of the drum, 18, is a huge thing. You finish high school, and all of a sudden, your parents feel that their parenting job is done. Now, this leads to a very strange relationship with the number 18, because youths know they can literally go buck wild and their parents cannot get any legal action. So if you're a minor, you're 16, disobeying your parents, there's still some help. You're under their authority, custody-wise. 18, though, if you want to go smoke meth and get trains run on you, well, now your parents can't protect you from that. They can't stop you. If you run away from home and don't come back, they can't legally bring you back. Runaways are quite a common thing in America. And people who have been watching lots of degenerate music and whatnot, they often want to go wild and rebel against their conservative parents who've protected them and raised them to be pure. So they see 18 as this opportunity to where they can go and get a very high body count and party all night, and they don't have to be held accountable to their parents anymore. And this creates a very rebellious spirit in your children towards their parents, sort of resentment where they're itching to turn 18 so they can be cut loose and live on their own terms. And this jarring cutoff at 18 often makes a lot of parents give up on their children and are like, well, what can I do? They're 18, they're gonna do what they want to do. So you see the sort of breakdown from the family start at the age of 18. If you look it up, AMLO, the president of Mexico, Manuel López Obrador, he talked about this, how America has a very broken culture because they give up on their young ones at 18, and then they usually fall into drug use and mental illness. And I found that to be a very astute observation. Vladimir Putin and AMLO of Mexico are two individuals who can criticize the West, and I think they have some valid points. Doesn't mean that those leaders are perfect. Rather, it's good for America to hold up the black mirror to itself so that they can see their own failures. And the number 18 is this number that is also used in terms of pimps to say, oh, well, barely 18. They really go after young girls. Girls are heavily preyed upon by very degenerate men. And this puts a very, very sick feeling in society. Okay. Now, a lot of young women, they turn 18, they open up an OnlyFans now. It's been quite common, unfortunately. So now you have girls right when they turn 18, they choose to do sex work. And this is heartbreaking. So it's either go to college, don't really focus on marriage, focus on career, have kids in your late 30s, let me rephrase this, okay. So the number 18, we have options now. Go into OnlyFans, go into the long road of college education that might not pay off, delay a family, and then 18, leave your parents' house, go party, go buck wild, experience the world, and make a lot of mistakes that'll give you trauma. In other cultures, 18 is not a significant, important number, and you keep the family bonds tight. And I did a test once, where I talked to my eldest, and I was like, at 18 years old, you'll have more ability to make your own life decisions, and you're gonna have to learn how to navigate this world. And she was like, so I can do what I want when I turn 18? And I was like, well, not exactly, because you don't want to disappoint me, right? You want to take my opinion so that I can help protect you and give you another perspective. And we had this discussion, but it's fascinating how the brain automatically goes towards, oh, I can do whatever I want. And that usually leads to sin, trouble, and trauma. Okay? Especially for girls, because boys and girls are different. 18-year-old boy, you're like, okay, get into work, go to a trade school. With girls, it's always something sexual after they turn 18. And that's what's heartbreaking. It's never, okay, let me hurry up and get married. It's, I need to go do porn. I need to party. I need to sneak alcohol. It's always something deviant. You see this quite often. Or, by parents, I'm off to college. And then when they go to college, fresh out of high school, it's frat parties, orgies, dysfunctional sorority pranks and hazing, and then they got all these stories to tell when they graduate, if they graduate, about what they did. And now the 18-year-old is straddled with debt. So the 18-year-olds are now able to sign up for high interest loans away from their parents and are unguarded, so they're up for grabs. Just look at all the dysfunctionality that starts right at the number 18. And that's pretty bizarre, how America has set up its culture around the number 18. That you're now a legal adult under the law, and therefore your parents' authority is minimized, so you should discard them and do what you want. At 18, you don't know much about anything. You're still a dumbass. I left home at 17, and my life was significantly harder being on my own. I'm not having anyone to protect me or give me advice. It is such a harder way to live. Practicing that American, oh, well, you're 18, goodbye. It's brutal. It's absolutely brutal. Because you're like, oh, what do I do now? And you don't know how to do very much anything. You've been, for a lot of youths, they've been taken care of by their parents. Right? And then now you're just kicked out of the nest and into the concrete jungle with crime and rapists and predatorial men and disgusting Jezebel women, and they're like, well, it's up to you now, goodbye, close the door. This is quite a common occurrence. And this sort of, you gave up on me 18, is the same as, well, I'm giving up on you and putting you in an old folks home. So the number 18 plays a very sick role in American society, and the amount of men who are drooling and foaming at the mouth for these teenagers for right when they leave 18, you're like, okay, she just turned 18, chill, she just finished high school, she doesn't know much, what are your intentions, and it's really quite troubling. And then you look at the education that they got in school, and you're like, at 18, you don't really know much of anything. You don't know taxes. You don't have a lot of life skills. You've just been fed a lot of the woke curriculum now. And you'll see constant stuff about, oh, I didn't learn this in school. School was supposed to prepare you for surviving and maintaining yourself in the outside world. Not just memorizing and parroting facts in a boring class with a teacher who's burnt out and hates their job. And a lot of schools are like prisons with tons of violence and decay, drug use, and not really helping people to achieve good reading and math skills. America scores very poorly on their public education system. So to imagine that an 18-year-old is ready to make all these tough life decisions, it's like, wow. So you can go into the military, You can move away from your parents, go off to college. It's a whole way of pushing them into adulthood at a jarring cutoff. And so I hope that more people will realize the Western value of America, of saying, putting your hands in the air and dusting your hands off when your kid turns 18 and that's it for you. They should see that that's not sustainable. That hasn't added to any good fruit. And if you just start looking at all the trouble youths get into, right, when they're cut free from their parents, you're like, wow, that's not right. We need to do better. And a family shouldn't have a cutoff date of your parents' authority. If the daughter is unmarried, she should stick around her parents. And when she becomes married, and then she will learn to operate as a wife with her husband and grow into that sort of matriarchal role and become more regal in her character and hopefully mature. But to cut off a bunch of 18-year-olds, send them off to college while they're super hormonal, has led to single motherhood and a lot of STDs and extreme amounts of promiscuity, and has fostered a very large generation of predatorial men. It's very strange. So, the number 18 should be, as the woke Tardians say, dismantle. We should dismantle and take away that cultural phenomenon of, well, when you're 18, you can do what you want and you're no longer held accountable to your parents, and you can just turn into a complete opposite person that your parents wanted you to be, and if you want to go be a whore, it's totally fine because you're 18 and your parents can't do anything. It's really quite crazy. And another strange thing is, when you're 18, that's when a person who is adopted can then go seek out their family members. It's also when child support ends and that person's a legal adult who can now see their mother or father who they were not allowed to. It's a very strange thing. The number 18. It's really, really fascinating when you just analyze all the different expressions of what that's led to. But my focus, though, is when your parents turn you out. And they often think, okay, you can move out at 18 and go get your own place. So having your 18-year-old, it's like the parents are so eager to kick out their children. They want to be able to party, go on cruises, have sex without having to sneak and hide it. It's a lot of selfishness. And a lot of it revolves around intoxicants. They want to be able to keep their money, not cook and have any responsibility for their 18-year-old, and then be able to travel and snort cocaine and do other types of nefarious drugs. And even if they're not doing that, a lot of it's pot smoking, drinking. It's very common for worse mothers to say, like, oh, well, you're 18 now, so it's up to you, it's your problem. And then that mom goes off and is with her new boyfriend, or a father's like, well, my daughter is dressing inappropriately and posting pictures like that on social media. I can't do anything and I can't tell her what to do because she's 18 now. So the fathers lay down a lot of their authority for their daughters when they turn 18. And their daughters become massive whores. And the fathers are like, oh, I guess that's what kind of daughter I have. And, oh, well, she's going into sex work, there's nothing I can do. You see this number 18 is used to separate parental authority. Now, you also have the weird part of, because the housing crisis is so bad, there are people who are in their 30s still living with their parents. And there's a very weird dynamic. But then there's also further down the line when your parents become elderly and you let them live with you instead of putting them in an old folks home. So you're back with you, being reunited with your parents, except it's your roof and not theirs this time. So I understand the dynamics of living with each other and how we go bouncing around on and off. But these sort of cultural becoming a man, becoming a woman rituals that we used to do stopped, and we just said at 18. We didn't have to earn being a woman or being a man, because being a man, it's a title that is earned. Because when you see cultures that were like, oh, we have quinceañeras, we have bar mitzvahs, you're married now, you're a man, or pagan rituals where you had to go on a hunt and kill your first elk and butcher it down, and now you're a man. And then you'd be welcomed into the tribe as a man, and you earned your title from being a boy to now a man. These social rituals of manhood and womanhood were important for making that individual realize the responsibility upon their shoulders and how they were supposed to let go, to let the child die, and to then become an adult. To sort of shed their skin of their childhood and welcome in the new chapter of their life. Those types of rituals are very eroded in America, and now it's just 18. Right? Oh, 18th birthday, finish with high school, bye. Mommy's gonna go party now. Mommy's gonna go live her best life. Glow up. You can see this sort of decadence and breaking down of family love and the disrespect that comes from that number. Just look at it. It's like a milestone that people look for, and they just shed the skin of responsibility. Now you may be saying, I won't do that, I don't do that. Okay, but don't deny that it does happen. And how did we get there? Somebody set up that number. Someone set up that number. I do wonder what would happen if we just stopped saying, when you're 18, you can do what you want, or when you're 18 this, when you're 18 that, and we just don't ever bring it up. And we stick around our kids and protect them the same as if they were 5. We remain that helicopter. We remain that shield. We have to let them make their own mistakes, but that doesn't mean we let them make grievous errors that could end their life. Especially for girls. Especially for girls. A boy at 18 doesn't have too much value. When he turns 35, he's got some money, he can be a provider husband, he's got value. 18-year-old has a lot more value as a girl because she's young, she's beautiful, she's fertile, she can be 19, 20, she's blooming in beauty. Okay? It's different, and men and women are different, they age different, it's just the way it is. And this is the way it always has been, and that isn't going to change because just seems to be a factor of biology. Sure, you can use plastic surgery, filters, AI, Photoshop, editing, and whatnot, and dim the lights in your home, and contour your face, and whatever. You can try all that. But at the end of the day, you're gonna age, and an 18-year-old girl is not the same as an 18-year-old boy. There's plenty of people who would want to marry a 19-year-old, 20-year-old woman, but marrying a 20-year-old guy, he's got nothing to give you. You're going to be broke with him for a while, for 15 years, while he builds his wealth, when you can just marry someone who's already there. And the older a woman gets, the more problems she has with fertility and energy levels to raise the child. So 18 is a number that harms girls. So I would encourage people in America to stop that Western value of giving up your parental authority at 18. You want them to launch, right? You don't want this failure to launch into maturity. But think of something you can do that will make them feel like they've actually grown out of their adolescence. Now, puberty was like, hey, you're a woman. That's leaving your a chapter as a woman. Your first period, but your brain is still like, you don't know nothing. Now you just got bleeding every month and you can have a baby, but that doesn't mean you are mature and have earned your title as a woman. It's a thing to earn, I think, now, that we should bring back. You become a mother when you have a child and you're a parent and you guard that baby. And you stick by them till death parts you. And I think we need some type of cultural ritual or something to replace this number 18. How we can measure someone being a true woman, because men, they often say like boy to each other. They can see the maturity level of him and see that he's still a moron. He's not a man. He's a male, but he's not a man. He's a moronic. There's men who are 40 who still act like boys, right? They're mentally idiots, financially incompetent. So when it comes to women, it would be interesting to see if we could stop the usage of this 18 number and only have it in terms of legalities, right? But not as something social and cultural, to make it more exciting for a woman to see herself as grown and where she can have the mental transformation. Postpartum is the mental transformation for a mom, where she goes through that dark season, recovers her body. When she comes out of it and she feels fully like herself again, she's different than when she started. Pregnancy and delivery and postpartum, that's your entrance into motherhood. And the more children you have, the more wisdom you get if you do a good job, right? So that's a natural process. But this number 18 is not a natural process. It's something different, constructed by the school system and the legal system. It's really interesting to think about. Let me know what you think, because I know I'm not the only person who's recognized this. And there's a lot of different routes you can take it. But it's strange how some parents, they like itch for that day. It's like they almost put their hands in the air and like, if you fall on your face, I don't have to help you as much because I'm not obligated by the law. Because when your child is under 18, you can be held responsible for child neglect. But at 18, well, they screw up their life. It's no longer neglect on your part. Legally. Think about that. It's very fascinating. If you'd like to join my blog, it's www.subscribestar.com/Milahan Archive. Hope to see you there.